Welcome to the Real Estate Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Lipsky of Break of Day Capital. I talk to leading experts to discuss a wide range of subjects to educate investors on best-in-class practices to build legacy wealth and positively impact communities. Let's jump in. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Lipsky with Break of Day Capital. Be sure to join our Facebook group, Asset Management Mastery, where we have a great community of thousands of like-minded individuals sharing resources and best practices. Hey everyone, we have launched the BODC Multifamily Impact Fund. Invest with a trusted operator with a track record of success. Our fund offers diversification, risk mitigation, tax benefits, and stringent acquisition criteria. If you'd like to learn more, head over to our website at breakofdaycapital.com.
Choosing the right insurance coverage for multifamily properties isn't that complicated if you know who to talk to. At the Garzella Group, we're uniquely qualified to help you navigate the range of policy choices you have, and we're committed to saving you 30% in the process. We do intensive market research and have nationwide relationships, so we can find coverage other insurance brokers simply can't. We should talk. Go to quotenow.biz and we'll start the conversation.
Today on the podcast, we have my friend Jon Simpson. Jon and I must have attended about 8 of the same conferences the last few years, and I know he attends way more than I do. Jon is a multifamily marketing expert with over 20 years of experience in digital solutions and AI-driven property marketing. As a founder of Criterion B and BeSwifty, Jon has worked with multifamily brands like AG Spanos, NE Development, and RPM, helping property managers streamline their marketing processes and turn leads into leases. Thanks for joining us, Jon. Can you start by telling the listeners a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Gary. This is awesome. I'm very glad to be here. So I've been doing multifamily marketing specifically for about a decade now. On and off, like before that, we did a little bit. I started the agency about 20 years ago, and we were working specifically in digital marketing for ad agencies. In that process, I got to work for Amly. So we rebuilt Amly's website probably back in 2009 and 2010 probably. And we really enjoyed that process, and Dallas was booming, lots of cranes. And so we said, hey, it's time for us to kind of branch out from the ad agencies and let's start going after real estate. So we've been doing that. And over the last 10 years, every year we've doubled down more and more on multifamily. So we've really found our niche in multifamily.
Nice. All right. So let's start in the beginning. I'm gonna buy a property in a couple months. When do I start engaging with you, and where do we start?
So that's a multifaceted question. So a lot of the time we work with properties such as you mentioned AG Spanos, for instance, and NE Management. Both of those guys are ground up developers. And so they bring us in very early in the process. So right after land has been purchased and they haven't even broken ground yet, we're working with the designers, the architects, those people to come up with the name of the property and to do the branding for the property. If you fast forward a little bit further and we're looking at value add properties, we come in typically during the due diligence phase. So when you're looking at buying it, you don't even have the LOI yet. You're going in and just researching it. We can come out and help look at what's going on from a marketing perspective already, what assets are available, what's going to be needed. Are you wanting to rename it? Are you wanting to rebrand it? Or are you just going to pick it up as is and you need to build out the digital assets? Typically the website component, we don't have to start that until about 2 weeks before you close. So we do like to get started before you close because you want that website to be up and be able to receive rent from your residents on day one. So there's things that have to go into place beforehand for us to get all of that ready to go, right? The actual website only takes about 30 to 45 minutes for us to build out. So we can do that really quickly. But the rest of it is really a lot of back and forth with you, collecting assets, getting those logo files, images, floor plans, all of that kind of stuff, so we can get it all added onto the site.
Nice. And so on a value add property that's already have a website, we're starting from scratch. Are we using any of the stuff that's already there, or?
So that again, it's there's so much of this that is up to the owner at the time that we take over when we're starting to help them out. So we can migrate sites for you. That's easy to do. And if the current owner is up for letting that site go, which sometimes they aren't, sometimes they're not cooperative, sometimes they don't give you the domain name, they don't give you any of that ahead of time. And so you really don't have a choice except for to start from scratch. And sometimes the sites are so bad, and a lot of these older properties that are being that you're purchasing, some of them don't even have websites yet. So we come in and we get to start from scratch on those. Typically, if there's already something there, we'll take the parts of it that we can take. So we typically rewrite all the content, but if there's any images that are good, or at least good enough to start with, we'll start with those images. We'll bring those over. If the logo is good and not, nice and all that, we're not going to be redoing it. We can pull over the logo and grab the branding colors out of the logo and do all of those things. Typically, the process, though, it actually takes longer to migrate an existing site than it does to start from scratch. So if we're not having to keep anything that's currently there, we can build that site much faster.
So when you look at someone else's site for a property, what are the things that you typically like shake your head and say, what are the three things that they're doing wrong the most, or the biggest like low hanging fruit for you,
Sure. So I'd say the number one thing that you want to do when you're looking at your website or when you're looking at a website of a property you're going to purchase is make sure that the user journey is going to be really easy for the resident to use. So are there calls to action throughout the site where they can click to apply or click to schedule a tour, pick up the phone and call you? Are you making them work to find your phone number, to find your address? So oftentimes you would be surprised how many people really do make you work for those things. So there's a lot of opportunity just in cleaning up the user interface and making it easier for people to get a hold of you. The second thing is, are there opportunities from a floor plans perspective? The number 2 page of your website for multifamily is floor plans. It's the only industry I've ever seen where where there's a secondary page that gets as much traffic as the home page does. But in the multifamily space, the floor plans page really does. So they are neck and neck. And so the floor plans page, that just tells us if it's going to get that much traffic, you should spend a lot of time looking at it and refining it, making it easier to use, make sure that all the information that the user needs is there on that page at that moment so that they can make their decision. So those are the 2 biggest things that we look at right away. Outside of that, we're going to look at your neighborhood page, your amenities page, your gallery, right? Just make sure that those other pages are actually helpful and they have really high quality images. The images on a site can make or break the performance, right?
Yeah, I've definitely seen some websites where even for our properties, I'm like, what the heck are we using? These pictures are awful. It's not good at all. And some companies are property management companies are good doing that, and some are not. So my property management company does all that. So I know you work with some property management companies and then some individual owners. Like, what do I, if I'm working with a property management that does it in-house, could still go to you? And what's like the value add, I guess, with
Sure.
going to you?
So, I mean, that's a good question. I'll take a step back real quick on the photography side of things. You have to be really careful on photography, even when you're buying it from somebody else. Like when you're paying a photographer to come out and really look at those licensing agreements, as a lot of them will stipulate that the ownership of the photography is limited, right? So if you're using apartments.com or rent.com or apartment list or Zumper, any of these guys that say, hey, we throw in the photography for you, they'll come out, they'll shoot it, and they do a good job. And as long as you're using their software platforms, you can use it, right? But as soon as you decide, hey, I don't want to use that platform anymore, and you go away, so do the images, right? So those belong to them. But just like that, coming from a third party, other software company, when you go direct, I've met with several photography companies. When I go through their licensing agreements, they stipulate that when you sell the property, the photography does not go with the sale. The new owner is going to have to repurchase the same photos from them. And so you have to be really careful on who you choose. And I've done a lot of research on this to try to figure out who we want to partner with. And I did find a company, just added value here. If anybody wants to look them up, it's HomeJab. They have I think they said like 95% coverage of the US where they can have their photo shoots done. and the owner of the property, or the actual property, owns those images outright when they're done. Photography for this industry is one of the cheapest industries to get photography for. Real estate photos are some of the most inexpensive photos you can get, which I feel like it's a shame that more people don't get good photos, right? You really should spend the money and do it. Okay, and sorry, I forgot the question that you had asked me now.
Yeah, no worries. So let's say, my property management company, I've been lazy on my end and just let the property management company do it.
Sure.
What's the value add if I go to a company like you? Because I think a lot of people just refer to them. So
yeah. Well, if in our best scenario, we're working with the management companies on a regular basis for more of their properties, right? So we like to build those relationships, and we go out of our way to build relationships with property management companies. That said, some of those management companies I've had a hard time getting in with, and I've had friends like you and other GPs and owners who own the properties that I've become friends with who have said, no, I'll let you do my property. And they've gotten me in the door at several of these agencies that then once they start, or firms, the management companies, once I get in the door, then they start giving me all of their other work, right? And once they see that we make it easier for them and we're making it easier for you, then they can kind of see that benefit. So the benefit of going direct to us, if you're like in bypassing your management company, I would say I don't usually encourage you if they're same thing in my space. I always had to be careful not to step on toes of the IT departments or the management companies, right? So I don't want to step on their toes. I love the opportunity to present myself and to give demonstrations of what we can do and how we help both sides. But we really do make the process easy for whoever that is. A lot of our clients are owner managers, right? So they'll own, and they have both NE and AG Spanos are good for instances in that regard. So even if you have 40, 50, 60, 70 properties, we get in there, and our job, we see our job, our mission is to make the life of the marketing person easy. We want to reduce the stress on them. So whoever that is, on whichever side. So if you're seeing not as successful results from your management company, I would suggest making a recommendation, right? Now, if you've already got me set up when they hire you, that's also really good, because then I just get to kind of float on in the door there with them. But I'm very, very open and just value centric. So I'm happy to talk to anybody, even if you're not using our platform, right? And just give you recommendations and look and see what you're doing and help you out however I can.
all right. So now we've built the website. I guess we're focusing on leasing. Is that our next focus when I work with you?
Yeah. So once you build it, and the old saying of once you build it, they will come. It never is true, right? We build the website, no one's going to come to it at all. No one's going to just find it. You've got to drive traffic to it, right? And we do that a couple different ways. First and foremost, the biggest marketing tool you have in your tool belt is Google Business, the profile, Google Business Profile. So building out that profile for each of your properties. Once you build that, again, don't expect it to just work for you. Google Business Profile should be treated like social media. It needs to be updated regularly. And I mean 2 or 3 times every week. A lot of times people ask me like, well, how do you do that? What options do I have? And Google makes it very easy. There is a number of different things that count as updating it, whether it's FAQs, just making sure you're being very responsive on your reviews, and then actual doing postings. And you can also add photos, right? So you can add photos anytime. But the postings are great, and it's a good way to get some local keywords put in there, which makes you rise to the top of the map pack. So whenever you do a Google search for like apartments near me, or apartments in Phoenix, apartments in Tempe, wherever, right? You can do those searches. You're going to get the first 4 or 5 are going to be paid ads. So you can buy your way to the top, right? And we do a ton of Google ad buys. The second 3 are the map pack. These are earned spaces. It's all elbow grease. All you have to do is work for it, and anybody can work for it. You can do it. Your leasing manager can do it. Your apartment management company can do it. Anybody can do it for you. We do it for you, right? So once you've exhausted yourself and said, hey, I've got too many properties, or I'm not getting the results I need the consistency. We bring consistency to the table. So we set you up on platforms. We write the content. We post the content. We handle all of that on your behalf to give you the consistency you need. It takes time to earn your way to the top. So typically when you're doing it, if you click on underneath those three, there's a button that says view more. Now you're inside of Google's ILS. So like basically Google's version of apartments.com or rent.com or any of those. You're just one of many, and you're right next to all of your competitors, right? And everybody is fighting to earn that spot or earn those top three slots. So that's really what you want to work on the hardest, is getting in one of those three slots there. So we build the website, then we need to drive the traffic to the site. Like I said, you do that through Google Business, and you do it through Google Ads is another great way to do it. Google Ads works much faster. It does cost more money, right? So you're paying Google to say, hey, for X number of clicks per day, I want to show up at the top, right? And they take whatever your monthly budget is. And a common question I get is, well, how much money should I be spending on Google Ads, right? And so we recommend no less than $500 a month for properties. If you're under 100% occupied, that's just keep things moving. Just keep it all churning and keep leads trickling in. If you think about how that money is spent, they're going to take that monthly budget of 500 and they're going to divide it by 30 days in the month. So I think that ends up being like $15 or $16 a day. And then they're going to say, okay, well, you're going to pay for every click, and the average click is going to say, let's say, is around $2. So you're going to get about 7 to 8 clicks every day. If those 7 to 8 clicks happen before 10 a.m., you're off for the rest of the day, right? So they budget it out where it's going to last you the whole month, and they kind of pace those leads coming in each day. So on a minimum, I say 500. We have clients that spend upwards of 8 to 10,000 even for some properties. And that's kind of on the extreme side. I would say our average user is going to be right in that probably $1,200 to $2,000 range. And the higher your vacancy rate is, the more money you would need to spend, right? So it's like I'm pushing 65%. You probably should be spending maybe on that 8,000 side, right? I mean, you're spending higher dollars to try to drive that traffic. So
we've done some geofencing before, rent.com, apartments.com. Like, do you think Google Ads is the best way to go, and then maybe sprinkle in some of the other stuff? Kind of. So let's say I have a 200 unit property, so I have a decent amount of money to spend on marketing. Where would you how would you break it down?
Sure. You absolutely need to have some ILS, right? So I feel like ignoring the ILS, and everyone's getting, I think there's a sentiment of frustration in the air right these days on at least on apartments.com, if not on the others as well, because prices are going up, right? But they have such a hold on the marketplace. Everybody goes there. They spend so much money on ads. They drive so much traffic. You need to have some presence on an ILS because your traffic is there. There's people there that can find you, right? So you should have a percentage of your budget there. And again, depending on where your vacancy rates are and your occupancy is, all of those things, the more vacancy you have, the more you need it. Okay. So it's also, you're always juggling those balls of, I have to sign a 3 to 6 to 12 month contract with each of them. So how much do I do? So I would always recommend starting not necessarily the base level, but a level above that, probably on whichever ILS you choose. So, and then from there, I say the website it's not a replacement for your website. And so don't go into it thinking it is. And some people, again, the smaller the operators are, I find the more likely they are to say, oh, I got an apartments.com page. I'm like, okay, that's good that you have that, but you also need to have a presence online that you own, that you're in control of, that you can make the changes and the updates and the promotions on, and to do all those things for. So the ILSs are very good. Now, as far as where else your budget is going to be spent, I do believe that Google Business is first and foremost where you should spend some money. And it doesn't even cost very much to do it when you're even paying somebody to do it. But that will get you more bang for your buck than anywhere else, because Google gives themselves preference. And you're going to have so many people that go to the Google Maps and do the search while they're out looking for an apartment. So you're going to drive a lot of traffic that way. On the Google Ads side, Google Ads typically eats up the majority of the budget, but has a better ROAS than other marketing mechanisms, right? So you're going to get a higher return on what you're spending through Google. And the more refined your ads are and the higher the better you can qualify the people that are clicking on those ads, the more effective they will be. A good, for instance, on this is we have a tool that we call Price Sync Pro that ties into our AdWords tool, and it takes it looks at your PMS, so RealPage, Entrada, Resman, whatever it is you're using, and it takes your real-time pricing and availability, and it updates the pricing in the ads in real time. So if we say one bedroom starting at $850, and then an hour later it changes to $900, we take that into effect, update the ads, and we're still driving traffic through that. When people can see the price of an apartment in an ad, if it's out of their price range, they're less likely to click to go find out how much it costs, right? They already know. If they do click, they're kind of pre-qualifying themselves. It's one less layer of qualification they have to go through. So anything like that you can do to make your ads more qualified or more qualifying for the people clicking on them will help you out.
Awesome. I love it. And you mentioned AI. What kind of AI stuff? Or we might have mentioned some of that's automatically happening in the background, but navigate me through that.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about AI, I think, is that so much of it we can put into play behind the scenes and nobody even knows that it's happening, right? And so when I say we can build a site in 30 to 45 minutes, we can do that large in part to the help of AI. So we walk our users through a setup wizard where they fill out forms, they answer questions in a quiz-like mentality, tell us your amenities, which amenities you have, all of those types of things. Talk about the location where you are located, like all of that. And then at the end of that setup wizard, which takes about 10 to 15 minutes to fill out, the website is generated and all the content is created via AI and put into the system. So you can go in and look at all that content. You can edit that content. You can click a button that says regenerate that content for any specific place on the site. So whether they're headlines, subheadlines, promotional, pop-ups, anything on the site, you can regenerate it. So it speeds up that process because the hardest part about building any website or anybody that's ever built a website for any reason, for businesses or side projects or whatever, the hardest part is always the content. Creating the content takes the longest. So when we go in there and build these sites out, just the fact we have all that content allows us to speed that process up, 10 to 100 fold for a lot of people. Oh, we also, sorry, I'll expand on that. That's only one part of the AI. We also use it for ongoing SEO. So we have automated SEO on the back end of our site. So when things change on the site, it updates the SEO that's going on, starting from our structured schema, which is techno speak for the way that a website tells a search engine how to find it. So it's in the code. It's not on the surface. You don't see it as humans unless you know where to look, right? So if you go look at the code page, you can see it in there. So that's driven by AI. So it pulls in facts like, or looks at your PMS and looks at pricing and availability. It pulls that into the mix. It looks at your office hours and the area of town you're in and all of that. And it pulls all that in the mix too, to make sure that it's always updated and relevant, I guess. And then it also goes through and looks at the page structure, and we can change the page structure in real time based on availability. So if one bedrooms are all rented up and we don't want to put them at the very forefront of our floor plans page, we look at that, we'll rearrange the page, we'll put the one bedrooms down below, we'll move the ones that we know we have available up to the top. So you can do a lot of things with the data that we have access to through the PMS and using AI.
That's awesome. I love that. Is there anything else regarding like marketing for a property that I haven't asked that I should be asking?
Oh, well, you touched on a minute ago, apartment or geofencing for apartments, right? And I am a big believer in geofencing. I love geofencing, and I've been looking for a good partner in this space for a while. And I'll share another lead that I found out in my research. And most of you guys have probably already heard of this one. It's apartments geofencing, right? So if you're looking for geofencing for apartments, that's probably what you type in anyways, right? Apartments geofencing. They are apartmentsgeofencing.com. And I had a great conversation with them and learned a lot about their history and how they started the business and all of that kind of stuff. And at the end of it, I felt like this is a product I can get behind, and it's something that I feel like I can refer people to and get them to use it. But just knowing a lot about geofencing from my past and the ability to say, hey, I want to target not just competitors, which is I think the common practice a lot of people see. And going back 30 years, we've been doing this with direct mail forever, right? So we'll say, hey, here's our 5 comps. I want to blast their whole property with direct mail and tell them that we're coming and we've got apartments available when their leases are up. With geofencing, it lets us take that to the digital level, but say even more so than the comps, we say, hey, what are the big areas of town where people congregate? Is it the grocery store? Is it the shopping mall? Is it the park? Is it a large employer somewhere? Let's also fence off that area and let's start serving those people ads, right? It's more like a billboard. You don't know who needs us and who doesn't need us, but it's brand awareness. You're getting a lot of brand awareness. And so I called some of my clients in the industry who I saw use the service, and I asked them, hey, what did you think? What has your experience been? Have you seen a benefit from it? And hands down, they say they do. Again, it's not to replace anything else you're doing in my mind, but especially when we get to this time of year, we are late September going into the hardest leasing season of the year, right? So we're going into starting in October with Halloween, and then you have Thanksgiving, then you have Christmas, and nobody's thinking about it. And the sky's falling, right? It feels like we just came off this high of the leasing season. And every year it happens, but we come off leasing season and we're going into the fall and we're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And we forget that it's typically a 90-day journey. So anything that if we start hurting now, it's probably not because we're not doing enough now. It's probably because we didn't do enough 2 months ago when things were good and we weren't thinking about it. It's then when it should start. But going into the fall, we're going to be saying, what else can I throw at this? How else can I get in front of people? What else can I do? And I'm looking for those creative ways to do it. And it is a very cost-effective thing you can do, throw into your marketing mix. So I would definitely recommend taking a look at them. And I worked with a lady named Kara. So you ask for Kara. She was great. She knew a lot about
John sent you.
Tell him John sent you. That's right.
Well, John, this was a tremendous education for myself. So thank you. I'm sure it'll be a tremendous education for our listeners. Where can they find out more about your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to BeSwifty.com. That's BeSwifty.com. And all of our pricing is transparent. It's on our website. We'd be happy to help, happy to have a call, like I said, to talk about anything marketing related that you want to. You can find me easy enough on LinkedIn, looking up Swifty or just Jon Simpson. I'm there, but yeah, Swifty is a great place to get a hold of us.
And John's pretty much at every single real estate conference. So
that's right.
If you go, check him out.
I'll be at OpTech in October. If anybody's going to OpTech in Maryland, I'll be there.
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks so much again. This is Gary Lipsky signing off. I'll be back next week with another informative episode on the Real Estate Investor Podcast. To all of our listeners, thanks for joining us. And if you like this episode, please head over to iTunes or Stitcher and subscribe, and leave a review, as it will help us reach more people. And if you'd like to learn more about what we do at Break of Day Capital, head over to our website at breakofdaycapital.com and sign up for our newsletter and fill out our investor application. We'll talk to you next week.